Hello everyone. Enjoy these relaxing yet powerful stories of resilience and triumph. When three bullies cornered Kareem behind the gym, they expected fear. But within seconds, one was on the ground, and the others learned what it meant to mess with the wrong kid. People barely noticed when Kareem Tolliver stepped through the front doors of Millstone High in Lansing, Michigan. No big welcome, no whispers of curiosity, just another transfer student. Halfway through the semester, his backpack was worn, his hoodie faded, and he walked with that careful kind of quiet, like someone who'd learned to read the room before ever speaking in it. It was a cold Monday, snow slush still lined the sidewalk, and the morning bell rang sharp through the halls. Kareem paused at his locker, eyes scanning the names and faces rushing past. He wasn't scared, he just knew the routine. Find your classes, don't make waves, keep to yourself. Inside the first period math class, a few students glanced over when he walked in. A girl in the corner whispered something behind her hand. The teacher smiled, motioned toward an empty desk near the back, and moved on. No introduction, no curiosity, just silence. Kareem didn't mind. He'd learned silence wasn't always bad. In Detroit, where he came from, it often meant safety. He didn't wear flashy clothes, didn't show off on purpose. His uncle called it moving invisible, something you learned in certain neighborhoods where attention could get you jumped. But Millstone High wasn't Detroit, it was polished. The kids wore name brand everything. Their haircuts looked like appointments. Their laughs were loud and confident, and they moved like they owned the floor. No one outright said anything to Kareem, but he saw the way some looked at his shoes, how a kid in gym class glanced at his second-hand hoodie like it had stains on it. He ate lunch alone on the third day at a table near the back of the cafeteria. Tray of spaghetti, banana, and a chocolate milk, simple, quiet. He chewed slow, watching, listening. If you've ever felt like Kareem misunderstood or invisible, drop a 1 in the comments. If not, comment. And if you're still thinking about it, hit that subscribe button to join us at RVM Black Struggles for more stories that matter. That's when he heard the laugh. Yo, what is that? You bring that from home or something? Kareem looked up. A tall white boy in a varsity jacket stood a few feet away, smirking. That was Brock Simmons, football co-captain, star tight end, and self-declared king of the junior class. He had two other guys flanking him, both grinning like they were in on a private joke. Kareem didn't respond. Man's eating like it's the Great Depression, Brock added, loud enough for the nearby tables to hear. Laughter, not all joined in, but enough did. Kareem kept eating, eyes down. He didn't want trouble, not now. One of Brock's friends, a short kid with a crew cut, leaned over. You hear me, man? You deaf or just slow? Kareem looked at him, just for a second. Then he blinked, grabbed his milk and stood up. I'm done. He walked away, no insults, no scene, just left the tray and moved toward the hallway. It didn't stop there. Later that afternoon, someone shoved his books off the desk in science class. No one claimed it, the teacher didn't notice. Then after school, someone wrote charity case in dry erase marker across his locker. It wiped off easy, but it left a mark. Kareem went home quiet that night. Took the 12 bus to the edge of town, where his uncle's gym sat behind a tire shop. Inside, the smell of sweat and leather hit his nose, before the bell even chimed above the door. Uncle Reggie looked up from wrapping someone's hands. You all right? Yeah, Kareem muttered. Just school. Reggie didn't press. He nodded once, then gestured to the mats. Let it out, that's what they're for. Kareem didn't say a word, just changed, stepped on the mat, and hit the pads like they'd said something personal. Hooks, counters, pivots, clean, fast, focused. He didn't need to brag about what he could do. He just needed to remember who taught him to never let anger lead. Stories like Kareem's aren't fiction for everyone. If you're moved by what you're hearing, take a second to like this video and share it with someone who needs to hear it too. RVM Black Struggles is where voices like his get heard. But one small act in the cafeteria sets off a chain Kareem never meant to pull. The cafeteria moment should have been nothing, a dumb joke, a quick jab, one of those things people forget by next period. But for Brock Simmons, it wasn't about the joke, it was about the reaction, or the lack of one. Kareem hadn't looked scared, he hadn't flinched, he just left, and that made Brock itch. By Friday, Kareem's name was bouncing around the locker rooms. The new kids got an attitude. someone said. Doesn't talk, just stares. They said it like it was a crime. Don't let this be the last story you hear today. Hit subscribe, turn on notifications, and be part of a community that stands up, speaks out, and shares truth. Only here on RVM Black Struggles. In gym class, Kareem got paired with Brock for basketball drills. The coach barked out pairings, and the boys lined up. Kareem didn't blink when Brock tossed the ball at his chest a little too hard. Come on, Tolliver. Show me what you got. Kareem bounced the ball once, twice. We just passing, right? Yeah, just passing. Brock faked a casual stance, but when Kareem passed it back, he snapped the ball like a picture to Brock's chest. Dead on. It echoed. Brock blinked. The other boys snickered. Dang, someone muttered. Brock gave a tight smile. All right, cool. That was the moment he decided he didn't like Kareem. After that it got petty. Snide remarks in the hallway, gum stuck in Kareem's locker. One time someone tripped him near the vending machines. Kareem never responded, never snitched. He just kept moving. But silence in a place like Millstone, that was gasoline. And Brock had a lighter. Lunchtime became a stage. Brock would throw loud jokes Kareem's way from across the room. You from Detroit, right? You bring your bulletproof vest or leave it at home. The table laughed. Some kids looked uncomfortable, but no one said anything. Kareem stared at his sandwich. One of the guys at Brock's table, Logan Ferris, leaned over. Dude, I think he might actually be crazy. Look at him, doesn't even blink. He's not crazy, Brock replied, loud enough to care. He's just another hood story waiting to happen. That one got under Kareem's skin. After school, he walked a little faster to the bus stop. He knew how things escalated. He'd seen it, been around it, but this time, it felt personal. At home, Uncle Reggie noticed the tension in Kareem's jaw. You holding something back? Kareem nodded slowly, trying to. Reggie set down his coffee. Sometimes holding back is harder than swinging. You know what I mean? Yeah, you're not there to teach anyone a lesson, you're there to graduate, to build something. I know. Reggie looked at him for a long moment, but if someone backs you into a corner, you don't let him walk over you either. Kareem didn't answer. He didn't have to. Back at school, the rumors shifted. A new narrative started floating, that Kareem had a record, that he'd been kicked out of his old school, that he'd fought a teacher in 8th grade. None of it was true, but no one cared. In history class, Brock leaned over from behind. You ever seen a real fight, Tolliver? Kareem didn't turn around. Yeah, I mean up close, not on TV, blood on the floor kind. Kareem finally glanced over his shoulder. You don't want that kind. Brock smirked. Is that a threat? It's a warning. That smile faded just a little. But the next day, Brock made a choice. He caught Kareem outside the gym after 6th period. Kareem had headphones in, walking toward the back parking lot, where the late buses waited. Brock and 2 of his friends followed quietly. Yo, Tolliver. Kareem turned, pulling out an earbud. You think you're tough? No, you act like it. I act like I want to be left alone. You don't get to choose that. Kareem's shoulders tensed. You done? Brock took one step closer. Not yet. The bell rang behind them, and the hallway spilled out with noise, but this moment stayed frozen. But Brock doesn't know he's pressing on something that's been trained not to snap, but strike. The next day was a Friday. Cold wind cut across the Millstone parking lot as students rushed to their buses or rides. Kareem stayed behind, helping Mr. Patel, the custodian, with stacking some old desks near the side exit. He wasn't trying to impress anyone. He just didn't want to be in the crowd, but Brock had planned it that way. By the time Kareem came around the back of the gym, the lot had mostly cleared, just a few cars, no teachers in sight. Brock stood near the dumpsters with Logan and Ty. All 3 had that fake, casual posture, hands in pockets like they were just hanging out, waiting. Kareem spotted them and kept walking. His backpack hung over one shoulder. His pace didn't change. Hey, Brock called. Kareem stopped about 10 feet away. What, you think you're smart or something? Just ignoring me every time I speak? I didn't come here for you. Brock took a step closer. You didn't come here at all. You got dropped here. Kareem narrowed his eyes. What do you want? Logan circled to the side. Slow. Ty leaned back, chewing gum like he wasn't in the middle of something wrong. I want to know what makes you so special, Brock said. You act like you're better than everyone, sitting by yourself, staring at people. I'm just minding my business. No, you're disrespecting mine. Kareem looked at him square. You got something to prove? Prove it. That's when Logan made his move, rushed in with a quick shove to Kareem's chest. It wasn't clean, it wasn't practiced, just aggression. Kareem didn't budge, he didn't back up, he said, voice low. Brock laughed. Go on, Logan. Logan moved again, this time with a wild punch aimed at Kareem's shoulder. It didn't connect because Kareem had already stepped inside his range. One twist, one sweep. Logan hit the pavement with a smack that echoed. What the? Ty started, but he didn't finish the sentence. Kareem turned, eyes on Brock. Don't. But Brock couldn't stop now. He lunged, aiming high, thinking his size would carry the hit. But size didn't matter here. Kareem slipped under the punch, pivoted, and dropped his elbow into Brock's ribs with just enough pressure to send him staggering. Ty backed off. Yo, chill, man. It lasted maybe 12 seconds. Brock was on the ground, one knee down, breathing hard. Logan sat against the dumpster, eyes wide. Ty had his hands up like he just watched a stranger flip a car. Kareem didn't gloat, he didn't taunt, he just stood there. That's when Mr. Langford, the assistant principal, rounded the corner. What's going on here? Brock scrambled to his feet. He jumped us. Kareem looked at him. You serious? I didn't do nothing, man. He's crazy. Mr. Langford glanced at Kareem, then at the others. He didn't see blood, no black eyes, just tension and fear, but not the kind he expected. Kareem's hands were still, his breath steady. He looked more composed than any of them. Come with me, Langford said. They walked to the office in silence. No one said a word. In the waiting room, Kareem sat across from Brock. Logan had already called his dad. Ty said nothing at all. Brock kept muttering under his breath. He's dead. He's done. Kareem didn't even look his way. Inside the principal's office, Mr. Langford stared at Kareem long and hard. Wanna tell me what happened? Kareem did. Calm, straightforward, no lies, no sugarcoating. Langford listened. Then he leaned back and said, You're lucky no one's bleeding. Kareem didn't respond. You know we have a zero-tolerance policy, right? I didn't start it. Langford sighed. Doesn't matter who starts it. What matters is who finishes it. Kareem stared at the desk. Then maybe you should talk to the ones who never tried to stop it. Langford blinked. For a moment, just a breath. He didn't know what to say. But when the dust settles, and a teacher shows up, Kareem's not walking away a hero. By Monday, everyone at Millstone High knew. The fight had exploded into whispers and sideways glances. Kareem couldn't walk down a hallway without someone stepping aside, not out of respect, out of weariness. He wasn't the quiet new kid anymore. He was something else now, something to watch. In first period, the guy who used to sit behind him moved to a different seat. During lunch, no one said anything when Kareem walked in. No jokes, no comments, just silence. But that silence felt louder than anything. He took his usual seat in the back, set down his tray, and ate alone, same as before. But now it was different. Now they weren't ignoring him, they were avoiding him. Across the room, Brock sat at a crowded table, retelling the story like he was the victim. Dude's psycho, Brock said, came at us like it was a movie scene, kicked Logan's legs out like he's Bruce Lee or something. Nobody does that unless they've been in real fights. Ty kept quiet. Logan didn't show up that day. One girl at the table raised an eyebrow. But you guys surrounded him, right? Brock snapped back. Now we were just talking. He flipped out. She didn't believe him, but she didn't push it. In gym class, Kareem didn't get paired with anyone. Coach Rollins just told him to shadow drills today. No reason, no warning, just instructions. Kareem didn't argue. After school, he didn't go to the gym. He took the long route home instead, walking past the corner store, then cutting through an alley he hadn't used since he moved. He needed time, space, a place to think. At home, Uncle Reggie sat watching a replay of some old UFC fight. Kareem dropped his bag by the door and slumped onto the couch. Rough day? Reggie asked. People act different now. You thought they'd be grateful? No, I just didn't think they'd look at me like I'm dangerous. Reggie turned off the TV. Listen, when you defend yourself and win, people see strength, and strength scares the weak, especially the loud ones. Kareem stared at the floor. I didn't even go hard. I held back. I know you did, but they don't care, because you exposed something in that boy. and he ain't ready to live with it. What do I do now? You keep your head. You remember why you're there. Kareem didn't answer, because deep down, part of him wished he had gone harder. At school, things only got stranger. A couple teachers gave him those long, thoughtful looks. One guidance counselor even called him in for a check-in. I just want to make sure you're adjusting, she said. I know transferring mid-year can be hard. Kareem nodded. She smiled too tightly. Do you ever feel angry? He stared at her. Why? No reason. Just checking. He got up and walked out before she could finish her next sentence. That night, a post showed up on social media, a blurry photo of the fight behind the gym. The caption said, "He thinks he's in a movie. Scared yet?" It was posted from Brock's burner account. The comments were Yo, he dropped Logan like a sack of bricks. Don't mess with that dude. Nah, something's wrong with him. Why was he even here if he's gonna act like that? Kareem read through every word, not once, not twice, but enough to feel something tighten in his chest. He wasn't ashamed of what he did, but now the story was no longer his. The next morning, he walked into school and saw two security officers standing by the main entrance. They weren't always there. In homeroom, the principal's voice crackled over the loudspeaker. All students involved in last week's altercation are currently under review. A formal hearing will be held this Thursday. Kareem didn't react. He just stared straight ahead. A hearing. Now they were making it official. But the storm isn't over. Not until Brock tries to rewrite the story. Brock Simmons wasn't used to losing. Not on the field, not in class, and definitely not in front of a crowd. That fight behind the gym bruised more than his ribs. It bruised his image. And for a guy like Brock, that was worse than any hit. So he did what people like him always do when they lose control. He lied. It started with whispers to teachers, casual comments about feeling unsafe around Kareem. Then came the rumors. Kareem had been kicked out of 2 schools before Millstone. He'd once broken someone's nose in middle school. He carried a knife in his backpack. None of it true. None of it challenged. The video Brock posted kept getting shared. It was grainy and short-cut just before Logan swung first. But in those clipped seconds, Kareem looked like the aggressor. Calm, calculated, dangerous. Brock added captions. Watch how he moves. That's not normal. He added hashtags. Millstone, threat, Nepard, shouldn't be here. The comments took a darker turn. He's not like us. Betty learned that in juvie. Expel him before something worse happens. Kareem saw it all. He didn't reply. He didn't post a defense. But silence has a cost. That Tuesday, his mom got a call from the school. By Wednesday, a formal hearing was scheduled with the district office. Kareem would need to appear with a parent or guardian. Reggie took the day off work. Inside the conference room, the walls were plain. A big rectangular table sat in the center. On one side, the principal, Mr. Langford, a school board member and the head of student discipline. On the other, Kareem, Reggie, and a folder full of statements Reggie had made Kareem write down in case things went south. Brock wasn't there. He didn't need to be. His story was already floating in the room. Langford cleared his throat. We've had several concerns raised by students, faculty, and parents. It's our responsibility to determine whether Kareem Tolliver poses an ongoing safety threat to the student body. Reggie leaned forward. My nephew is not a threat. He's trained in self-defense. He didn't go looking for a fight. He tried to walk away. He gave them a warning. The board member glanced over his glasses. Is it true he has combat training? Reggie didn't flinch. Yes, but training don't mean violent. It means control. It means knowing how to not hurt someone. One of the assistant principals spoke up. There's a video circulating. We don't see what starts the altercation. But of course you don't, Reggie interrupted. Because it's edited. They went quiet. Kareem finally spoke. They came after me. I didn't swing first. I didn't even want to be there. And yet, the board member said, tapping the folder in front of him, we have reports of you being involved in an act of physical aggression. So what should I have done? Kareem asked, calm but firm. Let them beat me. Silence again. Reggie sat back. This ain't just about a fight. It's about what you think my nephew is. You saw a big quiet black boy who defended himself and assumed he must be the problem. Langford looked uneasy. The board member scribbled something on his notepad. The decision was delayed. They needed more time. Outside, Reggie exhaled slow. You did good. Doesn't feel like it.
They heard you. Might not admit it, but they did. That night, Kareem didn't eat much. He sat on the back steps, looking up at the sky. Everything felt upside down. He did the right thing, and somehow he was still the one under fire. He wondered if there was even a right way to be. But the real turning point comes from someone Kareem least expects. Thursday morning was stiff with tension. The hearing decision hadn't come down yet, but everyone at Millstone walked like it already had. Kareem could feel it the moment he stepped inside. He wasn't a student anymore. He was a subject, a rumor in sneakers. He moved through the hallway like fog, present, but untouched. Some students stared, some whispered, others just looked away. By lunch, the usual table in the back felt colder than normal. Kareem picked at his food. He was halfway through his apple when someone slid into the seat across from him. A white girl with short auburn hair and big glasses. Quiet. Kareem recognized her from a couple of classes. Always had a sketch pad. Always kept to herself. Her name was Delaney Foster.
She didn't say hello. She leaned in and whispered, "I saw everything." Kareem blinked. "What?" "Behind the gym. I was there. I didn't mean to be. I was sketching the dumpsters for a project. I stayed quiet because I didn't want to get dragged into it. But this hearing's not right." Kareem stared. "Why are you telling me this now?" "Because if they expel you over Brock's lie, I'm just as guilty for not speaking up." Kareem paused, unsure if he should even believe her. "You're not just messing with me." "No," she said, eyes firm. "I already told the assistant principal. I'll be at the follow-up hearing." That night, when Reggie came home from work, Kareem told him everything. "She's gonna testify." "Yeah? You trust her?" "I don't know. But she sounded serious." Reggie nodded. "Sometimes the right people stay quiet until the cost of silence gets too high." Friday's follow-up hearing felt different. Delaney sat at the far end of the table, hands in her lap, voice shaking slightly, but her words were clear. They cornered him. 3-on-1. Logan threw the first punch. Kareem just defended himself. He told them to back off more than once. "I saw it all." The room shifted. Even Langford stopped scribbling his notes. "And you didn't say anything until now?" the board member asked. Delaney shook her head. "I was scared. But that's not a good excuse." Her voice cracked just slightly at the end. They dismissed the room after 15 more minutes of discussion. Kareem and Reggie stepped out into the parking lot together, the winter wind sharp against their jackets. "She didn't have to do that," Kareem said. "No," Reggie replied. "But she did." The official decision came by email the next morning. Kareem Tolliver is not subject to disciplinary action. The school acknowledges evidence showing he acted in self-defense. Reggie printed it and stuck it on the fridge. But even with the hearing closed, Kareem knew things weren't just fixed at school. The following week, things were quieter. No snide remarks, no shoves. Brock didn't speak to him. He didn't even look his way. Logan returned, kept his head down. Ty switched lunch tables entirely. One afternoon, as Kareem was putting his books in his locker, Delaney walked past. She didn't say anything, just raised a hand, a small wave, and kept walking. He smiled, just a little. Not everything needed words, but the air had changed. Not just around Kareem, but around the school. He noticed 2 freshmen standing up for a kid getting mocked. Outside the gym, he saw a teacher actually step in when a student made a slick comment. In class, little shifts, nothing huge, but they were there. But even after justice, Kareem is left with something heavier than bruising. The last bell of the semester rang, and just like that, the halls flooded with noise again. Backpacks slung over shoulders, lockers slammed shut. Plans for winter break echoed off the walls. But for Kareem Tolliver, none of it felt normal. He stood by his locker longer than usual, letting the wave of bodies pass him by. There was no more hearing, no threats, no whispers. But peace, that was a different story. He'd survived the storm, but surviving doesn't always mean healing. Curtis, his English teacher, caught him as he was leaving. "Hey Kareem, hold up a sec." He turned. "Yeah? We're having a student-led assembly tomorrow. One of the speakers dropped out, and a few of us thought maybe you'd consider saying something." He froze. Like speak in front of the whole school. She smiled gently. Only if you want to. I just think people need to hear from you. Not the version that's been passed around of you. Kareem didn't answer. Just nodded once and walked off. That night, he sat on the floor of his room, with a notepad in front of him, blank, pen in hand. He stared at the page for nearly an hour. Then he wrote one line. I didn't ask to be here, but I'm not going anywhere either. The next morning, the auditorium was packed. Lights low, students restless. Teachers lined the back wall, arms folded. Kareem waited backstage until they called his name. He walked slowly to the mic. No paper, no script, just his voice. I've been called a lot of things since I got here. Quiet, weird, dangerous. Some of y'all probably still don't know what to make of me. Some nervous laughs from the crowd. I didn't come here to fight anybody. I came here to finish high school. I wanted what everyone else wants, to get through my day without drama. He looked around. The silence was heavy, but listening. I'm not going to stand up here and say I'm perfect. I've made mistakes. I've gotten mad. I've been hurt. But if the only story you know about me is the one someone else told, then you never knew me at all. The gym was still. I'm not from here. I'm from a city where keeping your head down is how you stay alive, where you learn early when to speak and when not to. And here, I've had to learn that sometimes silence just makes people talk louder. He paused, then nodded toward the teacher. I'm grateful for the ones who listened, and the ones who didn't. I'm still here. You couldn't scare me away. Somewhere near the middle rows, Delaney sat watching. She didn't move, just listened, face still. Kareem looked up once more. I guess what I'm trying to say is, don't be so quick to label people. You don't know what they've been through, what they've had to carry. And maybe next time, instead of laughing, pushing, or posting something fake, maybe try asking. He stepped back. The mic clicked as it's silent. No applause at first, just stillness. Then a single clap, then another, and then it rolled. Not wild or dramatic, just real. That day, something cracked open in Millstone High. Not everyone changed, but a few did. And sometimes that's enough to start something new. Later that afternoon, as Kareem walked through the courtyard, a younger kid stopped him. You really trained to fight? Kareem shrugged. I trained to stay ready. The kid smiled. Can you teach me? Kareem thought for a moment. You sure you want to learn? It's not about hurting people. The kid nodded. I just don't want to be scared anymore. Kareem smiled, just slightly. All right then. First lesson, stand tall. Even when it feels easier to shrink. They walked side by side toward the exit gate. Not as teacher and student, just two kids learning how to move forward. Sometimes the hardest battles aren't the ones with fists, but the ones where you're forced to prove you belong, in a world that keeps pushing you out. If this story meant something to you, subscribe to the channel. We've got more stories worth hearing. In life, much like Kareem's experience at Millstone High, you may find yourself judged before anyone truly knows your story. People might look at you, how you walk, how you speak, where you're from, and decide who you are without ever asking. That's not fair, but it's real. You may go through seasons where silence is your shield, where walking away feels like weakness, and where doing the right thing still lands you under scrutiny. But let Kareem's story be a reminder that integrity, quiet, consistent integrity, is power. You don't have to prove your worth to those determined to misunderstand you. Just like Kareem, you might face rumors, false narratives, or even moments where you feel forced to defend your name. And in those times, remember this: training doesn't mean you're looking for a fight. It means you're prepared to handle conflict without losing yourself in the process. Control is strength. The courage to stand firm in who you are, even when the world labels you wrongly, is rare, but vital. Let your actions speak, but when the moment calls for it, use your voice too. When Kareem chose to speak at the assembly, he wasn't just telling his story, he was reclaiming it. That's something you can do too. Don't let others write your narrative. Speak up, not with anger, but with truth and clarity. Be willing to say, I didn't ask to be here, But I'm not going anywhere either. You don't have to yell to be heard. You just have to be real. And even if you feel alone in that honesty, you never know who's quietly watching, who might be gathering the courage to stand with you, like Delaney did. Sometimes the shift in a place begins with one voice, one act of courage, one refusal to shrink. In your current life, this means standing tall even when the pressure to fold is overwhelming. It means showing others that you won't be pushed out of your goals, your purpose, or your peace. Keep showing up. Keep choosing growth over retaliation. And when life tempts you to let anger lead, remember Kareem's strength wasn't just in his fists. It was in his restraint, his discipline, and his determination to move forward without becoming bitter. Whether it's school, work, relationships, or the quiet battles within your mind, the lesson stands. Survival isn't just about enduring. It's about transforming. Even if people don't clap for your truth at first, keep speaking it. Even if the world tries to make you the villain in your own story, keep living like the hero you are becoming. Growth is rarely loud, but it changes everything. Stand tall. Someone else might learn how to be brave just by watching you refuse to bow.